up, Detroit? This is the Riles and Riley Rundown. I'm Tommy Riles with Brendan Riley. We start off with some breaking news that's going to kind of let everybody celebrate. The refs are back. No more questions about replacement officials. I think we can all say it's about time. We were ready for this.
After last Monday night, you knew it was coming soon.
Yep, even though the NFL didn't want you to think so. But enough of that. The refs are back, so let's just get down to business, and maybe it's time for the Lions to get down to business. We're going to start off, like we always do every pregame show, with our keys to the game. Brendan's going to start out with his first one.
Number one key to the game, get Calvin Johnson involved. Not 10 catches for 150 yards, which is great, and you know what? You get that, it's fine. No, I want 2 touchdowns from Calvin Johnson this week.
Yep. I agree. If Sean Hill can do it, I know Matthew Stafford can, because we all know Matthew Stafford.
Speaking of Matthew Stafford, he's back at practice today, so that's good news, although I never expected him to miss this week.
Yep. My first key, it's going to go along with the defense again. We've played now 3 legit running backs this year. Chris Johnson hasn't been as legit as he's been in the past. Frank Gore kind of took care of us a little bit, but I think a main key, if Adrian Peterson plays, I guess he's questionable now, but if Adrian Peterson plays, you cannot let Adrian Peterson beat us. Let Christian Ponder beat us with his arm, and I think if the run defense can hold strong, that could be a huge momentum swing for the Lions.
Christian Ponder's looked good this year, but if you hold Adrian Peterson, actually it's really good, 70% completion percentage with 713 yards and 4 touchdowns. But the fact is still that if you hold Adrian Peterson in check, Minnesota's going to have a tough time. They really got one wide receiver in Percy Harvin. And Kevin Rudolph, the tight ends, look good too. He's actually got 3 touchdowns. But they don't have another wide receiver, so we shouldn't have too many problems with our cornerbacks.
Yep.
I think Houston can handle Harvin, and then you don't got too many other weapons to worry about.
Yep.
But my number 2 is the D-line needs to get some pressure. And I've been defending this D-line, and I think rightfully so. Last week, they were not getting the pressure that you wanted. So get some pressure on Christian Ponder. With lack of weapons around him outside of Adrian Peterson and Percy Harvin, Christian Ponder's going to struggle.
Yep.
Last year in the home game, actually, he struggled so much that they took him out.
Yep.
And they actually almost came back in that game. But
yep.
Number 2 is get D-line pressure.
Yeah, my number 2, I've been saying this for a couple weeks now. Through 3 games now, Lions still don't have a pick. I want an interception in this game. Christian Ponder still hasn't thrown one this season. What a time for us to break out. Bentley's back. Houston's back now after last week. That pretty much means the only person missing now is Delmas. It's not really typical that an NFL team's going to go 3 straight weeks, 4 straight weeks now without an interception. I really want to see an interception and really would like it to be
Christian Ponder hasn't thrown one yet, just so you know.
Yeah, and that's kind of unheard of because if I remember right, I think he had a few last year.
He struggled last year, but he's also a rookie last year.
True.
I think this team is better than the team of last year. I mean, they only have a 2-1 record, so it's too early to know. And I don't think they're going to be a great team. I don't even think they're going to make a playoff push.
Right.
But they are a better team than last year.
My main reason why I feel like we need an interception this game, you got the home crowd behind you. You're 1-2. We need a big play in order to know that you guys still want this game. And I feel like an interception could be huge here. Pick 6, honestly, could completely change this game around. Because if Minnesota keeps it close, I'm going to start to get worried. Because I really would like to see Detroit have one of those explosive, dominant wins to where Stafford is right back to what he was last year. Calvin's right back to what he was last year. And I'm not blaming Calvin at all.
Calvin's still been fine.
Yeah.
He's had like 100. I think. Yeah. Hold on. Calvin Johnson still has 369 yards in 3 games. He's held himself to his own standards so far.
Exactly. It's just a matter of we have not been trying to find Calvin.
Well, my number 3 is going to be get some legitimate balance. I don't like what they did last week. Last week, we ran the ball. Here's what I don't understand. We ran the ball 26 times, I believe, in the first half.
Yep.
And 10 in the second half.
Yep.
That is not balance.
And the sad thing is, LaShore was having a great game in the first half, but the problem is, all Schwartz was doing was running the ball with him, or whoever the offensive coordinator was. And whoever was throwing out the play calls that game was not thinking, because it was all run in the first half, all pass.
And don't get me wrong, when I say I want balance, I want us to throw the ball more than run the ball, but I'm happy with that 25, maybe 30 area for the carries. But I don't want them to all come one after the other, after the other, after the other. Well, when you get yourself into 3rd down positions, I like to see them throw the ball, not lean on the run.
Here's a pretty good stat for you. You just said we had 25 carries out of LaShore last week.
26, actually.
26 carries out of LaShore. Me and Brendan are both on ESPN. Scroll up to the Detroit leaders and check out how many carries Smith had throughout the entire season so far.
Yeah. Through the first 2 games, Kevin Smith had 29. Mikel LaShore had 26.
In one game. So, I mean, I get that you want to get LaShore involved in the game plan and stuff, but you can't completely switch over this game plan now and think that you're going to
Something else that I want to point to that I don't think we talked about too much. Well, you know what? You haven't done your third point yet.
Okay.
So we can get to that in a little bit.
All right. My third point is going to be Matthew Stafford. I know you're injured a little bit here, but break out of your slump here. I mean, you haven't had a horrible slump.
You've put up the yards, you haven't put up the touchdowns, and you've given up way too many interceptions.
Yeah, you've got to come back to what you were doing last year if this team's going to be successful. I don't know necessarily if you have to throw for 5,000 yards. However, you do have to come close to about 45 to 47 yards.
Yeah, you need above 4,000. You really need to be approaching 45.
Yeah, and you cannot make the dumb decisions that you've made this year on a lot of your plays. Come out, and this is a great defense to go against and have a big game on. I mean, their defensive line is explosive, don't get me wrong. However, their secondary, you should be able to get past them with Calvin and Titus Young. I said it during our post-game show last week that Titus Young did what I asked him to do. He came out, he did step up, he made a few big catches last game. But we've got to get some big plays out of our receivers this week. That includes you, Brandon Dropagru.
Gosh,
so, yeah.
Stop dropping those passes, and this offense becomes a lot better.
Exactly. Yep.
You know, a drop pass here or there is all right, but this guy's dropping the easy ones on a regular basis.
Yeah, I mean, we went over it in the post game. You can't give up that turnover at the end of the game, and that's not the first time Pettigrew's done that. He's dropped big passes throughout the entire season so far. The only game he looked good was the first Rams game, and he didn't even look good that game. It was just the last drive. But, Brendan, go ahead with that point that you're going to make.
All right, what I wanted to bring up is everyone was in love with Mikel LaShore last week, and rightfully so. But why did we just forget about Kevin Smith?
Yep.
Kevin Smith was averaging 4.0 yards per carry. Mikel LaShore only hit 3.8, by the way, which is obviously not that different.
Right.
But you know who else has 4.0 yards per carry this season? Oh, Adrian Peterson.
Yep.
Kevin Smith was perfectly fine. I mean, Mikel LaShore can be your every down back, but I want to see Kevin Smith get worked in there as well. Yep. What I personally like to see is Mikel LaShore more in the 20 range, and at least get Kevin Smith 5-6 runs a game, probably some pass catching too as well. Work them both in the passing and running offense. They're different style runners. I like to have that, and that's one of the things I like about our running backs. And not that I'm ever expecting this, but if Javid Best does come back, that's what I like, is we have a bunch of talent at the running back position, but for some reason we wanted to give it all to one guy.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to stay the same because that's not our style. Well, so this game I want to see them work Kevin Smith back into the offense.
A big thing that I want to point out, last week, every radio station you listen to, every fantasy talk place you listen to, it was all about Mikel LaShore being your bust-out guy this week for fantasy. It's almost as if the head coaches and the play callers for the Lions were listening to that, and we're just waiting for LaShore to break out. Because, I mean, like we said, we're going to go through game by game right here. Not game by game, but the stats right here. Kevin Smith, first 3 games, 29 carries, 115. First 2 games, I'm sorry. 29 carries, 115 yards, 4.0 average, and 1 touchdown.
He didn't touch the ball game 3, did he?
No, he didn't.
Once.
Mikel LaShore, 26 carries, 100 yards, 3.8 average, 1 touchdown. So that basically means both those two had the exact same games, just one did it in 1 game and the other did it in 2 games, but they both had the same amount of workload.
And they did the same amount.
Which tells me they're pretty much the same type of back. The only difference is Mikel LaShore had a lot more. I mean, if you threw up, think about this. Through 2 games, that was 29 carries. What would Kevin Smith have done if he had 26 carries in a game? You don't know, because we were completely pass orientated in the first 2 weeks, which exactly is what I want us to be. I mean, I do not want this team to start becoming a run team. If we become a run team, you are not going to the playoffs. I will guarantee you that.
See, I do like the 100 yards average rushing per game.
Yeah, definitely, but we cannot.
But if it takes 35 carries to do that, I don't want it.
Exactly.
I'd honestly rather not get it off of that. I don't know. I'm okay with 70, 80 yards per game, which is not the best, obviously.
Another big thing to look at here, I just noticed. If you look at our receiving leaders here, you've got Calvin with 24 receptions, 369. Pettigrew's got 16 receptions for 156 yards. Imagine if he didn't drop half the passes that he's dropped
We're
so
running
far.
all our offense in the short passes.
Exactly.
Brandon Pettigrew, Tony Scheffler,
Pettigrew,
Will Heller. Titus Young, Nate Burleson. That's where all of our plays are going.
Pettigrew probably could have above 300 yards if he would have caught all the passes that he's dropped.
I don't doubt that at all.
And which that just tells you step up a little bit, Pettigrew. I called out Titus Young last week. Now it's your turn. I mean,
and if he can, I mean, not that Pettigrew's been terrible,
right?
If he can step up like Titus Young did, we could see a good game out of Brandon Pettigrew this week.
Yeah, and I mean, Pettigrew does have the capability. If he can learn how to catch, he could be a very, very useful.
And he's a good blocker, too, for a receiving tight end.
Yeah.
I mean, tight ends are generally not as good a blocker.
I'm not even asking you to go out there and be a Jimmy Graham or a Rob Gronkowski. Go out there and be an Aaron Hernandez. Just catch the ball when you're needed to.
Well, Aaron Hernandez had some pretty great numbers last year, too. I was thinking more like a Tony Scheffler. Honestly, like a Tony Scheffler.
Yeah.
Tony Scheffler isn't quite the guy he used to be, but if you could get Pettigrew to what Tony Scheffler was in his greatest days, or who's another guy? McMichael, I believe his name was, played for San Diego. Maybe I don't remember where he was, or Antonio Gates. That's a fair one, I think.
Jim Schwartz is honestly building this team a lot like Bill Belichick built the Patriots. He's got he wants to have the tight end involved in the game. He's got the one deep threat, just like Randy Moss was, and now you've got what's his face over there, is it Brandon Lloyd? Yeah, Brandon Lloyd. He's got the one deep threat, which we have Calvin, and then you've got the Wes Welker, like we have Titus Young, and then you've got just a few other guys just thrown around in there. I mean, there's times when
you never know what you're going to get at running back.
Exactly,
just like in New England.
There's times like you've got in New England where you look at the box score and you've got guys you didn't even know were on the team catching balls over there. I mean, it's just a matter of
Danny Woodhead was a wide receiver at one time.
Exactly,
he's become one of their top running backs.
Yep.
I mean,
it's very scary where this team could go. I mean, they could either reach the sky or they could go completely to the basement. I mean, it's completely
long-term outlook anyway. They go to the basement. The team's got too much talent.
They do.
They're a couple positions away from being Super Bowl contenders.
Exactly.
I mean, you get this team some cornerbacks, but back to this game. Like we discussed for the most part throughout the season, you want to see them throw the ball more.
Yeah.
Is there any way we can find Stafford's attempts this year?
I can check it out real quick. But throughout the season so far, I mean, everybody has been griping on Stafford, and they have it's been a little bit unfair what they've been doing to him. However, I mean, I think everybody's basically trying to base it off of last year, which is kind of unfair to Stafford. I mean, last year, let's all be honest, he had a really, really great season. But the problem is everybody is so close to calling him an elite quarterback that we wanted it right out of the gates. I mean, if he struggled, he was going to get all of this. So he kind of brought it on to himself, wanting to be an elite quarterback. And I don't even know if he wanted to be. I mean, he always says that let the fans decide that or let the league decide that. And that's what we're doing. And right now, honestly, he has not become an elite quarterback, which we hoped for. His attempts this year are 122. He's thrown the ball 122 times this year.
Through 4 games?
Yeah.
Or 3 games? Those aren't terrible numbers, honestly.
He's 84 for 122.
The issue is that, in my opinion, they're all short.
Yep.
I mean...
Well, the issue to me is he's got 863 yards through 122 attempts, and we've only got 3 passing touchdowns.
Right, we're moving the ball so short.
And you've got let's go through Sean Hill's numbers. 10 for 13 for 172 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. I'm sorry, 1 touchdown. That means in the 18 seconds that Sean Hill had on the field, he already threw half the touchdowns that Stafford did, which is kind of scary, meaning that just shows that Stafford does need to start finding Calvin a little bit more on deep passes.
Well, and if you were watching the game last week, you saw that Tennessee had safeties playing real deep.
Yeah.
And I think that scares a lot. It's scaring the Lions. I wish it wouldn't. I mean, yeah, you got 2 safeties real deep. So if Calvin's the only one deep, then you're right.
I'll tell you what. If Stafford had 4 interceptions and I saw him going deep down the field, and 3 of them were because he was going deep down the field, I'd have no problem.
I completely
with this.
agree.
It's the fact that he's gone through the Brett Favre treatment right here.
His interceptions have been on 5-yard passes.
He's going through gunslinger mode right now, and I don't want that. He was not a. I mean,
I've always seen Stafford. The one comparison I've always made of Stafford is Brett Favre. Yeah. His biggest problem as a quarterback is
he tries
he's too confident in himself. He tries to fit the ball in places where he really shouldn't.
Yeah.
And I've always said if there's a problem I want to have with my quarterback, it's that he's too confident.
Yeah, he's always trying to make the big play out of the small play. I mean, it's always if he sees someone open for a flash of a second and looks like he has an open field, he's gonna throw it, and that's the exact same thing that Brett Favre did, and that's what hurt Brett Favre's career is all the interceptions. We can't have Stafford get into the interception mode because last year that's why he was so good.
I want to point out something that's not too important in this game, especially being so early on in the season. But, I mean, hey, it's something to take a look at. At home this year, the Vikings are 2-0 on the road. They're 0-1. Yep. Vice versa for the Lions, 0-2 on the road and 1-0 at home. So the fact that it's at home is certainly nice. Last year, the Lions struggled to capitalize on home games. I think they went about 500. I don't know the exact stats.
Yep.
You know what? If they can do a better job taking their home games this year, this is one they need to take. Like we said last week, honestly, that if they lost to the Titans, we would be scared for the season, and I already feel that way.
Yeah.
I'm going to the Vikings.
I'm throwing this out there. I think I did this during the post game of the Titans game. This has already become probably the biggest game of the Lions season now. I mean, we all thought that San Francisco was going to be the biggest game in the first part of the season.
It was a big win. It wasn't a big loss.
Yeah, if you lose this game, now you're 1-3 in the division. Packers are probably going to win this weekend because they're ticked as can be, and they're playing New Orleans, who really...
That's actually, I think it's a tough game.
It is a tough game. However, New Orleans just isn't looking right.
Both teams right now really need a win.
Yeah, but if you lose this game, Minnesota goes to 3-1. Chicago wins; they go to 3-1, and then you're sitting alone for last place, 1-3, with everybody else with 2 losses.
I actually want to point out that you said we thought San Francisco's big. When we thought San Francisco was big, we didn't really think there was any problem with losing that game.
Right.
It was just if they win, this could be huge.
Exactly. It wasn't a matter.
This is the exact opposite. Winning this game means nothing.
Right.
If you win this game, great. You won a game you're supposed to win.
Yeah.
You better win this game.
That's what I'm saying.
If you lose this game, however,
that's why
you're going to have a tough time doing anything this season.
Exactly.
And me and you said, I believe, in at least the preseason, and may have even been in the pregame of Week 1, that while we're going to be upset if we watch this team have a rough season, you got to understand that teams do that sometimes. After their first year in the league where they have that big breakout season, they're not ready to take that step up and fall back like the New Orleans Saints. That doesn't mean they won't come back next season.
I hate to say it though. When I said rough season, I'm not expecting a losing season out of this team. You can't have a losing season. You have to go 9-7 or above. I mean, a losing season could honestly really hurt this team because
man, I think you're taking things a little too far. I mean, you have. Whether or not he's elite right now, Matt Stafford has the elite intangibles of a quarterback. You have the best wide receiver in the game. You look to have some good running backs. You have a good defensive line. You have some solid linebackers. All you really need is secondary. If we had a legitimate secondary, I think we would be undefeated right now.
It could be.
I don't think we would have. I definitely don't think we would have lost to the Tennessee Titans.
Well, I know for a fact if we had a legit secondary, Nate Washington wouldn't have had a.
We would have beaten the Titans
touchdown,
yeah, and we would have had a much better shot against San Francisco.
Yeah.
Would we have won? Maybe not. I believe Alex Smith did some work against us. Do you think Alex Smith would have done some work against a legitimate secondary? I don't think so. I really believe that if we had. I mean, and you're not going to gain that all through the draft necessarily. You might need to make some moves.
Yep.
But seriously, you get one legitimate starting cornerback in here, another guy for some depth, and then a safety. And I think this team is a great team. I think they're definitely. At least an 11-12 win team.
I wasn't necessarily saying that you can't have a losing season to detriment your playoff chances in the future. I'm just saying this town is going to turn against this team if you all of a sudden have a losing season. I mean, everybody thought, all the Lions slappies thought this was the year that we were going to come out, have a playoff run. However, with this status right now, I don't know. Or the Lions, like we always say, we've said this the first 3 games of the season. We don't know what this team is going to be yet. I mean, the sky's the limit right now. However, it needs to start coming to us now. Like, this is a huge game to determine where we are as a team. If you win this game, like you said, not that big of a deal. We go on to next week because you were supposed to win this game.
I believe we have a bye next week.
Okay. Well, the week after that then. But either way.
And you know what? Next week we'll probably only get in one show. Or no, we'll get in our post game, and rather than a pregame next week, we'll probably look back at the first 4 games and look ahead.
Yeah, next week we're probably going to put up 2 podcasts. Next week we're probably going to do one Lions, like where we are so far, and then we're probably being the MLB playoffs are going to be heated up. We're probably going to do a Tigers one to throw in there because I mean, we have been very biased to the Lions, rightfully so, since this is a football town. I don't know, guys. Like we said, it's very hard to judge this team right now. Brendan said it. This is a very important game to where if you win, that's great. You were supposed to win. You're 2-3. However, if you lose
2-2.
Yeah, 2-2. I'm sorry. If you lose this game, though, it's not going to be a fun season, guys. I'm just going to throw it out there because after this week, you've got Philadelphia at Philadelphia.
We looked at it in the post game. You have at least 7 games that are tough. Very possibly, you could say 9 to 10 of them are tough. And if you can't beat teams like Minnesota, you're going to have a tough time beating teams like you said, Philadelphia.
Exactly.
Houston.
And honestly, Seattle's become a very, very tough team all of a sudden now because Seattle's getting that momentum swing, and momentum's huge in the NFL.
And Russell Wilson's the kind of quarterback who comes out and has made us look silly.
Exactly.
And the kind of quarterback, he's a game manager who looks like a stud.
I'll be honest, I was very undervaluing Seattle at the beginning of the season. Seattle looks like a good team. Their defense has been pretty tenacious so far.
Is that at home or on the road?
It's at home.
And it doesn't scare me too much. I mean, not that it's not a losable game.
Right.
But with this team right now, it looks like every game's a losable game.
Exactly. But I'm just throwing out there. I mean, there's a couple games that now honestly, the only game that I see as a for sure win on the schedule is Jacksonville and Indianapolis.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
You've got 2 games that you for sure should win. And if you lose those games, I'll tell you right now, I'm going nuts on you on the post-game show. Because if you lose those 2 games, I have a feeling that you're going to have a lot of unhappy fans in Detroit.
You may have a top 10 pick this year if you lose those 2 games.
Exactly, yep. But we pretty much broke down this game to as good as we could. Recapping and everything, just be sure to stop Adrian Peterson. Don't let him break out to a huge game. We want a lot more pressure, and we want a few turnovers because, I mean, honestly, turnovers are a huge value in this league. If you can get the turnover early or late, it's going to be huge for the win. But as always, thank you for listening to the Riles and Riley Rundown. As we shared before, be sure to go like our Facebook page at the Riles and Riley Detroit Rundown. Also, go like our blog page, Sportin' in the D. We haven't really had very many likes from that. We have a lot of people.
By the way, it's Sport in the D. You keep mentioning Sportin' in the D.
Yeah, it's Sport in the D, not Sport in. I know it's kind of hard, but you'll understand once you get to the page. But like I said, we do want to thank you for listening to the show, and as always, go Lions.